I looked at that Detroit secondary. Well, we talked about it on this show. If you guys tuned in last week, we may have taken a little liberty at that defense, taking a few shots at them. Well, way to go, Detroit. Well done. What is going on, my monkey knife fighters? I'm Connor Rowntree. That's Jim Coventry. We have Thursday night football, and man, oh man, is it a great game. The most competitive division in football, the AFC East. Every single team is alive. I guess you could say that about the NFC South. However, every single team in that division essentially is below 500. These teams all have healthy records. They're in the hunt. And I feel like this is a game that could really define Josh Allen's career. Sean McDermott, I feel like, needs this one as a head coach. I feel like he's on a bit of a hot seat right now with the Buffalo faithful, especially if you're in tune to Twitter and the media. There's definitely questions around Sean McDermott's his brass and his ability to go out and finish games with this team. Talking about that, Jim, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Excited for week 13. You know, you're right about all this Buffalo Bills talk, but look, injuries. I know they're part of the game, but they have had a lot of devastating injuries. The secondary, like losing Micah Hyde, the safety, that was a huge deal. And they've had cornerbacks in and out of the lineup. Matt Milano's been in and out at linebacker. Now Von Miller is done, and they had been missing pieces there. So I totally get it. And then, of course, Josh Allen, his elbow, there is something up. We're looking at the last couple of games. There's something not right there. So McDermott may well be on the hot seat, but man, this is not the team that he had in week one, Connor.
No, not at all. And I think one thing that we have to look at is Josh Allen's productivity. And if we look at his number on Monkey Knife Fight, 265.5 just seems so low for the career and what we've come to know about Josh Allen. However, since the bye, he's only eclipsed this number once. He's got the banged up elbow, and he's finding other ways to get it done. I'm not knocking Josh Allen. He is such a competitive guy. If you go out and watch the game tape from last week, that final drive to set up, after he threw that beautiful pass to Diggs, Diggs got open, made the grab over the middle. He ran it twice just to give Bass a little bit more room. And with how close that field goal was, it paid dividends. So Josh Allen is finding other ways to get it done without his arm. And this Pats defense is giving up 6.3 yards per carry to quarterbacks this season. Justin Fields ate them alive.
Yes.
I'm going to take the less on the 265.5.
Yeah, as we look at this matchup, Connor, I mean, last week against Detroit, we broke this game down in this exact show. And when we looked at it, Detroit was the worst pass defense in the league. They had a bottom 4 pressure rate, and their best corner was out. And Josh Allen needed a late drive to put up moderate yardage. There was no passing yardage. They shut down Stefon Diggs. They had nobody. And until the fourth quarter, Diggs got to 77 yards. So this is not looking great. Now, when we look at this game, the past history, because the elbow doesn't really matter, because in the last 3 games, and I throw out that bad weather game from last year, remember that winds were blowing at whatever 40 miles an hour and there was snow. I throw that game out, don't even count it. So Allen, the other 3 games, has been over 300 yards against this team, but they're without their left tackle Deion Dawkins. That's huge. They don't protect well. And I just can't trust Allen to let it rip all day. And like you said, he's going to make it work. He's going to run or whatever. Now, New England's defense, we look at that. They hold most quarterbacks they face under 265 yards. But the thing is, they haven't had a tough schedule of quarterbacks. Cousins went for almost 300. And we remember Zach Wilson going for 77. In that first matchup, he was over 350 yards against them. But all that said, I think this game is lower volume. I think both teams are going to be comfortable playing a little more conservative than usual. So I think we're going less as well, Connor.
It just doesn't seem like the kind of matchup where you're going to look at 2 quarterbacks that are going to just light the lamp. However, Mac Jones looked great last week. Josh Allen didn't look so good last week. So the quarterbacks is a tricky one. It very much is a tricky one in this matchup, but I have to trust what I'm seeing out of Josh Allen and that elbow. I have him right around 260 to 270 yards. So 265 is just right on that teetering edge where I'm going to trust the less. And I think he's going to lean on his legs. I really believe in his legs in this matchup. He's rushed for over 78 yards in 3 out of his last 4 games. So, and his line on Monkey Knife Fight is 45.5. I'm taking the more on Josh Allen's rush line. And as I said earlier, that was my little tidbit. We alluded to it on Twitter last night, right, Jim? My tidbit is New England's defense giving up 6.3 yards per carry to quarterbacks, and Josh Allen averaged 7.8 last week. 4 out of his last 5, or 3 out of his last 4, pardon me, he has more than 78 yards rushing. Take the more on Josh Allen comfortably in this matchup.
You know, when we talk about the rushing yards in the past, New England would play a lot of man-to-man defense because they had higher level defenders. And when you play man against Josh Allen, that means the cornerbacks have to turn their back and run with the receivers. We're in zone. You often are passing them off, and you can defend the run better. So Allen's had great success on the ground. Now, this version of the Patriots defense doesn't have the talent. They're going to play more zone, but the talent is so much less that Allen's not going to have an issue running through them. This is not the Patriots defense of past years. So again, they play zone because of a lack of talent. That plays into Allen's hands. And Allen, like you said, he's going to aggressively try to take this game over. He probably goes 40 yards in the first half alone and then sails over that number as we get into the third quarter.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a gutsy game. It's in Foxborough. As I said, coming into the show, playoff implications, playoff berths essentially are on the line here. New England needs to win this game, and Buffalo doesn't have a great record against the division. They have 3 straight divisional matchups. They go New England, I believe it's New York at home, and then Miami at home. The New York Jets, obviously. So it's not easy football games coming up here. It's 3 clutch games to see if these guys are really a championship level team, a championship caliber team. And I think it starts by going in and winning a gritty matchup tonight in Foxborough. And I think as we have kind of broken down, it's going to be Josh Allen and his legs. And I think it's going to be a lot of smash mouth football. Now, Stefon Diggs, how does that affect him? 84.5 yards. Now, Jim kind of said it. It was a quiet week last week for Diggs in a matchup where I thought he was going to go off. Yes. I looked at that Detroit secondary. Well, we talked about it on this show. If you guys tuned in last week, we may have taken a little liberty at that defense, taking a few shots at them. Well, way to go, Detroit. Well done. Jim, how do you see Stefon Diggs?
Yeah, so we look at this game, and in terms of coverage, New England's been a good coverage team this year. They're 10th per Pro Football Focus's rankings in pass coverage. Very good. And the pressure rate's middling, so they get decent pressure. And remember, we said earlier, the Bills are without their left tackle, Deion Dawkins, and they're not a very good offensive line to start. That's a fairly big hit to them. And we know the drill. And last week, we talked about on the show, Belichick, we said, we'll try to take away your number 1 option, but we said that he won't win against Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson win that battle, and he totally raked. But they've had moderate success against Stefon Diggs. Last year, they held him with 60 yards, 85 yards. They didn't have the same success in 2020, though, because Diggs had 145 in one game, 92 in another. So it's been a mixed bag of what we've seen. But he's gone over that 82.5 number in 3 of the last 4 games against them. But now we got to look since Allen hurt the elbow. And in those 2 games, Diggs has 77. We've said it 3 times. The cake Detroit secondary, he couldn't hit that number. And then in the first game where Allen was hurt, Diggs had 48 yards. So right now, we are not looking at a full season. We have to look at the most recent trends. And another point I want to make is last year when Buffalo played New England, they made it a point to heavily involve Isaiah McKenzie because they realized the lack of speed on that Patriots defense. McKenzie underneath with his speed was something that they saw as a big mismatch. I don't think they're going away from that. So I don't think Diggs is going to see the double-digit targets. We talked about the quarterback. He will be focused on by the defense. He's going less in this game.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the game script. I love it when we come into these shows with similar game scripts because it just makes me feel a little bit more confident. More often than not, they play out that way. Hey, but it's the NFL. That's why we love this sport, because anything can happen. Now, another guy that I just need to talk about is Ramondre Stevenson, because he's just been going off in his own way. However, I'd love to see what his receive. We'll talk about his rushing line first, but I'd love to see what his receiving line is. Now, as a runner, his yards per carry is phenomenal because he's so explosive. However, this Buffalo team is solid. They're really solid against the run, and I think they're going to know that's what's coming to them. I think there's going to be a lot of play action. I think they're going to sell out to stop the run. So I'm actually going to take less on his rushing line, but I like the more on his receiving line. Now he's got 4.5. So his line on Monkey Knife Fight is 4.5 receptions, and he's gone for 50 or more receiving yards in 4 out of his last 5 games. So I like Stevenson to get involved as a receiver, some nice passes into the flats, some play action passes, just dumping it off to the running back. And then Mac Jones, well, he loves to check it down anyway.
Yes. So as we look at this, I want to backtrack and I want to paint a little bit of a picture. So last week we talked about Mac Jones on the show, and we said that the Patriots were facing the Vikings. The Vikings are shut down against the run, and we said that Mac Jones would have some play action. He had some downfield shots. He had the game of his life last year, and we called that. We saw the game script. And when we talk about game script, Connor, we would be right 70% of the time on game script. But like you said, it's the NFL. It doesn't always go that way. But now we go to Stevenson in this game. Remember, Damian Harris is out. He's already been ruled out with a thigh injury. So now we have a Stevenson who gets 7 to 15 rushing attempts in most weeks. But for Belichick to win this game, they're not going to be able to win on the back of Mac Jones. They are going to have to win with Rowntree Stevenson. They're going to have to commit to him here. And so I think those 7 to 15 rush ups, I think we're going to see more like 15 to 22 attempts here. But I also think, like you do, he's going to be involved in the passing game, because even though Von Miller's out, the Bills get back Greg Rousseau and AJ Epinesa, who missed the last game. This team has used a deep rotation of pass rushers when there's obvious passing situations to put heat on the quarterback. So even without Von Miller in this game, they should be okay. New England's offensive line is banged up. And so like you said, though, when the heat's coming, what's Mac Jones going to do? He's going to dump it to Harris. I mean, not sorry, to Harris, but to Rowntree Stevenson, who has 6 to 10 targets in each of his last 5 games. So he's catching the ball. I think he is the focal point of the offense. So I think he goes over the rushing yards. I think, like you, he goes over the receiving yards. And I think he finds the end zone and he goes over the fantasy point number on Monkey Knife Fight as well.
See, the only thing that's holding me up on the rushing line is that it's a Bill Belichick team, the next man up mentality. And there could just be, one of those guys in the depth chart could just come up and steal the show by the second half of the rush.
Yeah, there's like nobody now, Connor. They have nobody.
They're all dead. They're just the last man standing is Stevenson. All right,
the backup is the guy that hit the punter last week that kind of lost him the game, so he's already in the doghouse. Pierre Strong.
Yeah, I remember watching. If you go back and watch Belichick talking to him on the sideline, it's tough. Oh. It's tough. The guy just like puts his head down and walks away. So, all right, Rowntree Stevenson show. You heard it here from Jim Coventry. Let's lock and load. Hey, you changed my mind. I guess, hey, if they have to lean on him, they have to lean on him. I'm loving that reception line and I'm loving that receiving line. Those are where I'm really comfortable and where I want to play Stevenson. And then obviously the fantasy points, I'm taking the more on that as well, 16.5. I love the MKF system. It's a PPR system. You get 1 point for every reception. You heard our guy, Jim, 8 to 10 targets over the last 4 weeks. That's a possible 8 to 10 points right there. Anyway, moving on. I think we still have to talk about Jakobi Meyers just because of he's the go-to guy for Mac Jones. And when he went down for a little bit in last week's game, you saw the different Mac Jones. And then he comes back into the game and Mac Jones goes off again. Jim, do you have any update about Meyers? Is he good to go? Do you feel comfortable playing him tonight? What's going on with Jakobi Meyers?
He's expected to play. He is not 100%. There is an issue with the shoulder. He will play.
Okay, so with him on the field, 4.5 receptions, I feel, is extremely doable for the number one target, especially with this New England pass attack with a lot of slants. And I feel like they use those slants towards the middle of the field to open up the deep shots on the outside. And I feel like that's where Jakobi Meyers gets his targets. So I think the 4.5 receptions is doable, but I'm not nearly as comfortable with it as per se as the Rowntree Stevenson.
Yeah, this is a tough. That number is right in the sweet spot where it's tough to make that decision. So in his last two games against the Bills, Jacoby Myers has exactly 6 catches in each. But like we said, the shoulder isn't 100%. Now let's take out last week's game because he wouldn't have reached the reception total because he missed a good chunk of the game. But he has still been less than 5 catches in 2 of his last 4 full games. So he isn't getting the volume. It's almost like this rendition of the Patriots team. They have enough guys to throw the ball to that we're not seeing those 10 catch games for Myers as we saw in the past. They're willing to throw to Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, occasionally Kendrick Bourne, the 2 tight ends. And so I think they're willing to spread it out. And again, I think this is a low volume pass game. If the Patriots get their way, they're shortening the game. They're running the play clock down. They're running the ball. So I think Myers is just going to miss and he's going to go less.
Yeah, I think that's a great breakdown because, as you said, I'm just teetering on this number because I see him getting involved as almost I see his targets as almost a bluff to open up the run game. As I said before, those outside shots after throwing those slants, the inside slants to Hunter Henry and whatnot. So it's a tough number, although he's the go-to guy. I'm definitely feeling more comfortable towards the less because the good news is about the less is that you're winning till you're not. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you can always be winning until you're not. Gabe Davis is the guy, though, in this matchup. Big receiver on the outside. I like him to go for more. I don't see how New England can really shut him down if they're going to be able to shut down Diggs and the size of Dawson Knox. It's the size of Gabe Davis and the petiteness of the New England defense that it's French. I'm Canadian. It means small, by the way. This is a golden matchup for Gabe Davis. I know we don't think Josh Allen's going for more than his number, but Gabe Davis at 50.5. I like Gabe Davis to eat tonight. I think this is a Gabe Davis night on primetime.
So Gabe Davis has been held to under 40 yards in 3 of his last 5 games. Now he also has a 68 and a 93 in there. We do worry about Josh Allen's elbow and the limitation on deep passes. It's going to be a very cold night. We're looking at 34, 37 degrees, lighter winds, which helps. But what we've seen is I like Connor's ideas. I want to support it with some backup here, that we know that Bill Belichick's going to look to take away that alpha, right? And Connor pointed that out. They're going to look to take away Diggs. Well, secondary receivers, the good ones they face this year. And again, we called it last week. Adam Thielen would also have a good game. And because of the less attention, he went over 60 yards and a touchdown. Donovan Peoples-Jones had a strong game. Josh Reynolds, baby back, had 90 yards in him. So secondary receivers who are talented, like you said, Connor, the big receiver against the smaller corners, with less attention. Yes, this is very favorable. I'm 100% with you. He should go over, not by a lot, but that we don't care. We just need to go over by 1.
Yeah. Hey, it's 2 25-yard passes after just handing it off to Singletary for a while. Now, one guy that we just need to mention really quick is Devin Singletary. His yards per carry has been awesome the last few weeks. They just don't really hand him the ball. And then when they do make him the focal point of the offense, so yes. This is a game where he's supposed to be the focal point. We know that New England is phenomenal against the running with running backs, not quarterbacks, running backs. This is a tough matchup. 55.5 yards. I'm leaning towards the less. I'm feeling much more comfortable with him in the passing game. I'm feeling much more comfortable with both these running backs as check down options. Jim, where are you leaning with Devin Singletary?
Yeah, so New England, per Pro Football Focus, they're rated the number 14 run defense. So they're pretty middling. They can be had, but they're not bad either. They're certainly not an easy run defense to be prosperous against. In his last 2 games against them, Singletary had a 10 for 36 and a 14 for 86. So the carries are low. And again, I'm going to go back for the third time to mention their left tackle, Deion Dawkins, is out. They're missing one of their better linemen. He's not great, but he's better than the other options they have. And so now we look at this game, New England, they're going to have to focus on the pass. But I think ultimately Buffalo doesn't really want to run the ball. They're not going to commit to that. Like you said, they're going to run Josh Allen. Singletary's going to get his 10 to 14 carries. And I think on a cold night where New England is going to be able to deal with the physical aspect of that game, I think they're going to be in good shape here because remember, only 2 running backs this year have gone over 62 yards against this defense. And it was Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in the same game. Those are the 2 high water running backs. Everybody else all year has been under that. 55.5 yards for this defense. That's a high number. Singletary's not getting there. Less.
You just gave Packers fans the only thing to cheer about all year.
I did something well today.
There you go. There you go, Packer fans. Jim's got your back. All right, let's get into our favorite part of the show. Trying to hold in a sneeze here. Holy smokes. Touchdown dance time, baby. I did it. Let's go. Yeah, we're good. All right. Ramondre Stevenson is my obvious pick. Jim said, he's going to be the game script. It's all built around him, and I totally agree with him. I think he's going to get it more done in the passing game, as we alluded to. But if he slips away from this backfield, man, I don't think Mike Milano is going to be able to keep up with him for 4 quarters. So look for Ramondre Stevenson to sneak in with a receiving touchdown, may I say. And then also, if he's on the goal line, Harris is out. He's going to take those goal line reps as well. I'm leaning Gabe Davis, and I'm leaning Devin Singletary. Actually, I'm going to go McKenzie over Singletary.
Yes, we now match. It was, I thought I'd be way off the chart on McKenzie. I was with you on Stevenson, with you on Davis. Remember, and I'm going to point this out earlier in the show.
I know you mentioned it earlier in the show, but look what McKenzie did last week. He's that cheeky underneath guy that finds the pylon.
100% correct. And just want to point out for people that are looking for props on this game, Isaiah McKenzie, and I know Monkey Knife will have a number on Isaiah McKenzie. McKenzie last year in the playoff game, because they blew him out, they didn't use him a lot, but he had 3 catches for 45 yards and 3 carries for 29 yards. But in the regular season game down the stretch last year, non-weather game, 11 catches, 125 yards and a touchdown. They know New England can't deal with him.
Well, last week, look what he did to the Lions. He was the most effective receiver. 6 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. How can we not? And then, especially what we're saying, my one thing is if they get to the goal line, they're handing it to Singletary. Or they might hand it. They also have the bigger backs in the backfield as well. So you never know. That's why I'm going with McKenzie. I think Gabe Davis, I broke it down. I'm expecting a big night from Gabe Davis. I think he's going to be their top receiver. And then the Stevenson show. And I love that Jim and I are just in step today. We're having a blast. We came on, we talked a little Hero World Challenge before coming on the show. Jim's wearing the Monkey Knife Fight golf shirt. I've got a hat that says Talk Birdie to me because it's awesome. And it's just a great day. Hero World Challenge, Tiger Woods tournament, Thursday night football. Jim and I bringing it live for your breakdowns. Now, Jim, let the people know where they can get all your great content.
You can find me on Twitter at Jim Coventry NFL. I'm always doing threads with useful and actionable advice for fantasy. You can catch me on RotoWire's YouTube site. I do about 4 streams a week there on the RotoWire site and Sirius XM channel 87 on the weekends.
All right, Jim, final predictions for Thursday night football.
Bills squeak at 23-17.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Bills win. I think they cover, but it's not going to look promising for a lot of the game. New England could have a lead, but I trust in Josh Allen to get this done. I think this is a career-defining game because this is the game where he can go out and say, yes, I'm the big guy now. This is my division. The AFC East, that's mine. For the next few years, keep your tuna down in Miami. Keep your fins down there. This is my division. I think he's got a chance to go in and show the world that Bill Belichick is one of the best coaches. I think it's going to be a great game. The scheming of Bill Belichick versus the tenacity of Josh Allen. I am so excited. Folks, enjoy the football. I'm Connor Rowntree. That's Jim Coventry. Have a great day.